Yes, indeed. Welcome into another episode of Total Hockey Now here on the Total Hockey Now Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook network. I am at Pucking Thoughts, Adam Bernard. As with me, my line mates, as always, Ant Rivera at Ant Rivera 86, and then below me, Fuzzy Chris 91, Christopher Murray. Boys, we are at the NHL Final Four here. Not too shabby here.
The NHL's version of the Frozen Four. It is. I like it, and I think we got the four best teams right now that are going to represent what will be, who's going to be the champion of the NHL, the Stanley Cup champ. So I'm very excited for these four teams and for this series because I really have nothing to look forward to in baseball. And Chris reminds me every single day. So I appreciate that. But yeah, man, this playoffs has been outstanding, I got to say.
The playoffs have been great. We get to continue to watch some fantastic hockey. The good news is a lot of the mediocrity is now gone. The pretenders are no longer here. We can focus on quality hockey. There is still enough hockey that will be once a day. It's not like at the beginning when we had 3-4 teams and we were just all the hockey all day. I still don't like that we are doing 8 p.m. Eastern games on the East Coast. That is late. I am old. I need to get to bed by 10:30 so my joints can heal. I would like the NHL to start earlier, but because I know in a month's time there will be no hockey, so I know. But so I gotta. Who am I to complain right now? I gotta soak it all in before there's none left.
I'm glad you did mention that. Like, one sad part about getting this deep in the playoffs is that it's one game a night, best case scenario, the rest of the way. There's no more double headers. There's no more, like, I mean, granted, people on the East Coast probably don't want to stay up till 1 a.m. watching overtime. But that can get old after a couple of nights. Your body can only take so much. But not for me on the West Coast. For me, it's I'm totally fine. I like the 8 o'clock Eastern because 5 o'clock Pacific allows me to make sure I can catch just the beginning of puck drop. So
we don't cater to the West Coast.
I know. I'll say this. I lived on the East Coast most of my life. Like, there's no such thing as an East Coast bias. And then the second I move, I'm like, oh, yeah, there's an East Coast bias. Like, come on now. Anyway, before we get to those series, we're going to preview Rangers-Panthers. We're going to preview Stars-Oilers. Like Anthony said, probably got the 4 best teams in the NHL from wire to wire this year. I know Edmonton was stinky at the beginning of the year, but they've certainly rallied and made up for it. But before we even get into that, we'll also talk Conn Smythe Odds. We're going to do a new segment called Mask Off. A trade comes down a little earlier today, which is not something we're used to reporting at this time of the year, but nonetheless, it's going to be Ryan McDonough is heading from Nashville back to Tampa for, and I believe, a 4th round pick, and they get a 2nd and a 7th back, the 7th being this year, the 2nd being in 2025. Tampa definitely needing some help on the blue line. I guess they're sending a message that they're still planning on competing for another year or trying to, if you're going to try and make a move like that. Nashville may be clearing space to make some bigger moves here. So we'll talk Mitch Marner future as well. But initial reaction when you heard the news, Chris?
Confusion a little bit here. The Tampa Bay Lightning, I guess, believe that they can compete. It looks like Ryan McDonough was willing to leave Nashville at his exit interview. He said, hey, I'd like to go somewhere else. Obviously made sense for Barry Trotz to call Tampa Bay and say, hey, would you like Ryan McDonough back? And he actually was pretty good this season. Some people want to knock on him. He's a good defenseman, stay-at-home defenseman. He obviously got leadership, and he has won a Stanley Cup. So those are all great intangibles that you want. I just don't know why Tampa Bay paid, I guess the 2nd round pick is a lot, but let's not forget that Jake Gensel also went for a 2nd round pick, and there was no money retained. So I feel like that's a big part here. Nashville's already got a ton of contracts they're holding. They probably didn't want to add another one. Tampa said, hey, it is what it is kind of thing. But that's a lot of money locked up now. Ryan McDonough is making $6.75 million this year. He's going to make $6.75 million next year. Now, he's not a $6.7 million guy. The Tampa Bay Lightning now, according to the good folks over at Cap Friendly, they have $5 million in cap space. They also have to re-sign Steven Stamkos. So I don't know. This is one of those things where Julian Breezeball is going to have to circumvent the salary cap again. We know that him and his good friend over in Vegas are probably going to figure out how to do that. But To me, this feels like there's more that's going to happen here for Tampa Bay. We're not just bringing in Ryan McDonough. You need money. And I don't think Steven Stamkos has taken a discount to stay in Florida. This only further pushes a narrative that Steven should come to Montreal. We've pitched it multiple times. I am firmly behind this. Why not now? You know what I mean? Like, why not?
And because Tampa wasn't, because they have to re-sign Stamkos, and they did need to make upgrading the blue line a priority to a degree, is really the only way they could go about and do it. So they know what they're getting. Yes, Ryan McDonough is getting older, and his style of play, that takes its toll. But he was still, like you said, a reliable second pairing defenseman for Nashville last year, and they're going to expect the same out of him in Tampa. And we'll see what the roster looks like once we know Steven Stamkos' future. But yeah, do you think like the cap circumventing club, like the Lightning and the Golden Knights, like when they play each other twice a year, like they meet at like a local Chili's and like game plan and think about like ways to like do creative ways to circumvent the cap?
I don't think I'm pretty sure they're not going to a Chili's. I feel like they would meet in a dungeon somewhere where you need a passcode to get in.
Speakeasy, maybe?
Yeah, that's probably more like glamorous, but that's why I think a Chili's makes sense, because it'd be like, why would two NHL GMs be sitting at a Chili's or like front? You know what I mean? So like that's the genius of it, hiding in plain sight.
You know where they're not going? Red Lobster. That's where they're not going.
Oh,
Look.
I wanted to put a bid in at the liquidation one about 10 miles south of me, but I did not.
You know what? That would probably be interesting. I would like to know where those two hang out. They probably keep it on the down low so they don't get a visit from Gary Bettman and the rest of the owners would probably be angry. I feel like maybe they do this. Maybe they do it on the dark web. Keep it on the down low. Make sure nobody's finding out what software they're running here or how
incognito mode.
Oh, it's beyond incognito right now. Like they got to figure out exactly when Mark Stone's back injury will heal and how can we time it to be the first week of the playoffs. That's what it is.
Tried it. Well, I mean, it didn't work out for him this year, but they ran into
work out for Tampa either. But here we are.
Both teams losing to teams that we're going to be talking about. Well, let's just get to it right now. Let's start in the East, since that matchup was set first. My beloved Rangers against the Florida Panthers here. And we're going to be scrolling some odds across the bottom of the screen here for the Stanley Cup. And then also we have the conference odds for however many games and the winner there. So take a look at the bottom and see if there's anything you like there. But yeah, let's talk Rangers Panthers here. I mean, this should be one for the ages. This is two heavyweights. This is the top two teams in the East. You asked any hockey fan, any conference, any division, who are the top two teams in the East this year? I think they would all say the Rangers and the Panthers. So here we go. We're getting the best of the best here. Florida won 2 of the games this year. Rangers took 1, but those games are so far ago. They don't really mean too much. I know they met late in the season, but it's 2 months ago. Both teams have their big names contributing. Florida with Matthew Tkachuk, 4 goals and 13 points. Sasha Barkov, 5 goals and 13 points. Carter Verhaeghe, 6 goals, 10 points. I'm not rooting for people to get injured, but I will say when I saw Barkov leave the ice after blocking a shot with his hand, I was like, ooh, that would be very helpful to the Rangers if Barkov is out for the series. Not that Florida doesn't have the depth to, compensate, but yeah, no, you lose Barkov. That's a big one. And then Bobrovsky in the net, wasn't too busy last round, 8-3, 237 goals against and a .902 save percentage for the playoffs. You look at the Rangers side of it, Mika Zibanejad, 3 goals, 11 assists. Vinny Trocheck, 6 goals, 8 assists. Each tied for the team lead with 14 points. Chris Kreider, 7 goals, lead the team. Of course, that hat trick to get him there certainly was helpful. Forgetting about Artemi Panarin, 11 points so far. Let's see here. Igor Shesterkin has been arguably the best goalie of the playoffs, 8-2 with a 2.4 goals against, a .923 save percentage. We'll say best of the remaining goalies. I still think Jeremy Swayman was probably the best goalie of the playoffs thus far. So, hey, we got the series here. And what's your initial impressions when you look at the tail of the tape, when you look at the matchups?
I like the fact that both of these teams are pretty much coming in healthy. So you're going to get the best of them. I think I even read somewhere, maybe across a ticker or something, that Philip Cheeto may be making his return in this series.
Filipino, as it
Beetle.
looks, yeah, he looks like he's going to be. They haven't said anything yet, but it looks like he's skating, and if he's ready to go, he'll probably slot in on that third line, and Coyle moves down to the fourth line.
That's
Ooh.
big for the Rangers right there. That's a big I don't want to say acquisition, but a big return for the Rangers and their odds here. Look, I did a series preview, and the Rangers fans were not happy with my prediction, and I even said it was going 7. Like, I was giving them as much credit as I could. I still think that Florida ekes this series out and wins it in 7. But I will say this, and I didn't get to say this on the other show that I was doing. Whoever wins this series, to me, is going to win the Stanley Cup.
Okay.
I think that they're both better than Edmonton, and I think that they're better than Dallas too, by a little bit. Definitely better than Edmonton, but a little bit better than Dallas.
All right, so this is the Stanley Cup final. As far as Ant's concerned, Chris, what do you got?
I picked the Panthers to win the whole thing, so we're not changing it now.
Yeah,
Florida in 6 sounds like where it's probably needed to be. Florida is just a master of dominance. They are big, they are strong, they got a little bit of nasty to them. They got great goaltending. They are good on home ice. They're good on the road. They generate chances. This is a good hockey team. I don't think enough people give the Florida Panthers enough credit for just how good they are. The Rangers are good. Let's not take anything away from them. I do think there are a couple of question marks here. The Rangers kind of had a breeze through the first round. They were very good in the second round. Carolina just, I don't know, didn't really put up a great fight. I don't think the Rangers have had to face very good goaltending to this point. And I think at one point that's going to bite them because they are not a team that generates a ton of shots. And if you're not getting shots on net, it's going to be really hard to score goals. The Rangers, I think, are a very complete team. But is their defense better than the Panthers? No, I don't think it is. Are they as deep? Are the Rangers deeper up front? Maybe. But I think the Panthers can roll 4 lines, which is something that the New York Rangers don't do. Like, Rempe plays all of 4 minutes, and then that's it. His night's over. We kind of roll it out here. But I do think this will be a good series. It probably comes down to goaltending. First goalie to stand on his head, win a game for his team. Home ice advantage is going to be very important in this series. You do not want to give your opponent an opportunity to feel like they can run away with this. But my money is on the Florida Panthers here. They are just, to me, they're a really good hockey team. They're built to win.
Florida has that look of like Colorado did a couple of years ago, where they're just on a mission and nothing is getting in their way, and they're handling everything as it comes up. Florida, this is a team that ran through the East last year. Got to the Stanley Cup Finals. Yes, Vegas made it a short series, but Florida still played well. I think they kind of ran out of steam a little bit there. What scares me is Bobrovsky, because he didn't see a ton of shots against Boston, and that's usually bad for a goalie. Goalies want to see rubber. They want to stay busy. They don't want to be, but it didn't matter. Bobrovsky still made those timely saves when they needed him to, even though there were times he wasn't seeing a lot of action. So, it's not to say like, oh, the Rangers need to get a ton of pucks on him, but he is able to, make that save, that sleepy save, we'll call it, if they go a long period without seeing any shots. I'll say Matthew Tkachuk is about to become public enemy number 1 in New York, and I think he's ready for that. The Rat King, appropriate place for the Rat King to become an enemy is New York City. I don't know if anybody's ever actually seen those New York City rats and how big they can get, but they make Milo look very tiny. And yeah, so back to the Rangers and the Panthers, though. This is really an even matchup here. I'll make the argument, though, that if Hedl comes back, the Rangers can roll all 4 lines, because now that 4th line would be Gaudreau, Vesey, and Cooley. So, and they've been rolling those guys out whenever they need to. So I think in that regard, I think that basically the forward matchups are even. Florida probably has a tiny bit of an edge overall on the blue line, top to bottom. Adam Fox is probably the best defenseman of the series, but group-wise, I give Florida the edge on the blue line. Goaltending, it's to me, Shesterkin has the edge over Bobrovsky, even though everything I just said about Bobo, I still give Shesty the edge there. I don't think this series is going less than 7. I think I really want to pick the Rangers. I really do. I mean, you guys know I was hesitant to really fully get on with the Rangers, and then of course when I did, they lose 2 to Carolina before they turned it around in Game 6. But it's a really tough matchup. I think they are stepping up an opponent from like in terms of weight class for sure, because Washington was whatever, and Carolina gave them a fight, but Carolina needed their backs to the wall to really show up. And again, the goaltend, Freddie Anderson let in a couple that he would like to have back. So my heart is telling me pick the Rangers in 7, but I think the eyeball test is probably Florida in 7. But I can't. They've come this far. I can't not pick them in the series. And I know that give me the Rangers in 7. They find a way every time, and it's going to be give me the Rangers in 7.
I'm a little shocked because Florida to me is a way better team than Carolina is. And I will tell you this, what the Rangers did in the last series, that's not flying with this Florida Panthers team.
I agree.
They're not going up by 2 or 3 games. And then they were literally 13 minutes 13 minutes away from Game 7 against Carolina. Like they were down 3-1. That it took a Messier type performance from Chris Kreider to get them to win that series in Game 6. Otherwise, we might be on a whole different discussion right now. I don't know. I said I was going with Florida to win the cup, just like Chris said. This was the matchup that I had anyway as the Eastern Conference final. And look, I think it's going to go 7. I think the Rangers are going to give every ounce they can to this Florida team. I just think it's just going to come up a bit too short because, like you said, Adam, Florida is on a mission here. Look, they backed into the playoffs last year and somehow went on this improbable run where they almost beat Vegas with an injured Matthew Tkachuk. And now he's fully healthy. The team is fully healthy. I don't know, man. I'm going to stick with Florida here in this, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Rangers somehow, flip the script and win. It's something about, what this whole thing about 94, obviously the Knicks are out now, but that whole aura of what was been going on in New York and the way that both teams are feeding off of each other. They're both the same type of team. Obviously, the Rangers are 10 times more healthier than the Knicks are. But, sometimes that something like that can carry you. And what happened in Game 6 with Kreider, that goes a long way. So, I like I said, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm just going to stick with the pick and go Florida here in 7. But if the Rangers do somehow make it to the Stanley Cup, no matter what team is coming out of from the West, I think the Rangers finally win one since 94.
Florida and 6, you can get at plus 370 right now, by the way.
That's not bad. I want to see who takes the first bad penalty. Is it going to be Jacob Trouba or is it going to be Nick Cousins? I want to see which one's going to cost their team a goal first.
Rempe
can't. He doesn't play. He plays 4 minutes. Can't take a. He doesn't have time to take a bad penalty.
They're not even dressing Rempe at this point. Rempe. If Rempe gets in the lineup, it's either because somebody did something dirty and they're going to get ready to retaliate, or they start suffering some injuries because right now
he's got nobody to fight too. He's got no big hit. Like who's he going to fight? Nobody's going to fight him. So he's look at Pat Maroon. He just, like he was saying, he's looking for somebody, but nobody wants to tussle with him. Nobody wanted to put their team in a bad situation, and he needed to fight, guys in his class, and nobody wanted to go with him. So Matt Maroon became irrelevant. And I think that's the same thing with Matt Rempe. He's just irrelevant. But I mean, Jacob Trouba is going to try to decapitate somebody. Nick Cousins is hitting somebody from behind, of course. Like, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. I just think it might come like maybe later in the second period. I don't think Nick Cousins is driving anybody from behind. Maybe outball here. Sam Bennett takes a bad penalty. The hockey gods kind of balance it out for everything that he did in the last round. But I don't know. I have my money on Jacob Trouba doing something he shouldn't be doing.
Oh,
like,
that'll happen.
I hope that Florida takes some notes on how Pesci avoided that and just let Trouba run right into the wall.
Yeah,
into the glass.
Yeah, I would leave Trouba on the ice as much as possible though, because defensively that man is a liability. So you want to say, hey Jake, stay on the ice because that's where we need you so we can take advantage of your poor defense. That's what I would remind Jacob Trouba. Say, hey, stay here. Don't go anywhere. We need to exploit you for every reason possible.
So we've got me with the Rangers in 7, Anthony with the Panthers in 7, and then Chris Panthers in 6, you said?
Correct.
All right. All righty. So yeah, 370 for the Panthers in 6. Me for the Rangers in 7. I can get that at plus 470. And for the Panthers in 7, it's plus 490. So there you go. So if at any of those odds intriguing, go ahead and jump on them right now. Let's head out to the Western Conference, though. And this matchup just got set up as of last night with surprisingly no riots in Vancouver. Deep down, I was kind of rooting for something like that when Edmonton won. But you can it was one of those game 7s. Not that Vancouver played poorly, but Edmonton just kind of controlled it from the start. And you tell, no Brock Besser. That was the nail in the coffin. That stinks. To have a series go 7 and actually have it at home and have a chance to maybe win it, and then you just lose your best player of the playoffs or second best player, depending upon who you ask. But yeah, it's just a rough way to go out. But here the Oilers are taking on the Dallas Stars, who have had a few days of rest after beating the Avalanche in 6. When we look at the tail of the tape in this series, first playoff meeting since 2003. Dallas won in Edmonton in November. Edmonton won in overtime in Dallas in February, and then Dallas won 5-0 back towards the end at the beginning of April. These teams are pretty evenly matched here, 3rd and 4th in goals per game, respectively, 8th and 10th in goals against, 6th and 4th in power play percentage. Dallas does have a better penalty kill, ranking 8th to Edmonton's 15th. Like I said, Dallas is going to come in rested here. Miro Heiskanen leads the Stars in the playoffs with 13 points. Jason Robertson has 12, and Wyatt Johnson has 11. When we look at, and Jake Attinger started all 13 games, going 8-5 with a 209 goals against and a 918 save percentage. So, like Chris had said on the last show, not standout performances, but he's doing exactly what they need and getting the job done and not giving up bad goals. So that's really all you want. Leon Draisaitl leads the Oilers in the playoffs with 24 points. McDavid has 21. Bouchard has 20 points. And a little teaser here, when we talk Conn Smythe, we're going to pick one from each team. Evan Bouchard is my pick from the Oilers right now. Zach Hyman leads with 11 goals. Stu Skinner is 7-3 with 287 goals against, 881 save percentage, and 1 shutout in the 10 starts. I don't think we see Calvin Pickard again. I think that was just a temporary move there. I think they're going to ride or die with Skinner at this point. So I think everybody kind of leans towards Dallas being the favorites in this series. What does Edmonton have to do to win the series?
Need good goaltending, right? They can't, if they did what they did in this series where they switched to Pickard, it's not going to work. Not against Dallas. Vancouver, maybe, not against Dallas. And with Dallas having Ottinger in net, I mean, they barely beat Vancouver, who take nothing away from Vancouver. They barely beat them in a 7-game series without Thatcher Demko and without Brock Besser for that last game, where Vancouver made it a game in the last 10 minutes and made it 3-2. I mean, look, I had Edmonton going to the Stanley Cup, but I have not liked their play during this series here. And I'm very concerned of them going up against Dallas. I don't know if I can switch my pick because I had the Oilers going against Florida. But man, I would this is the one series where I think Dallas is going to come out and win this.
I would have been 4 for 4 heading into this round had the Vancouver Canucks decided that they cared. They did not. That was probably some of the most boring Game 7 hockey I've watched. I get that the Vancouver Canucks were dealing with some injuries and everything, but it is unacceptable. That effort that came out yesterday, they had 2 shots in the first period.
How about
a little bit better?
0 for the 4-minute power play. That was
not even a shot on goal.
That's
and then they had 5 shots in the third. This team is I guess they ran out of gas or they were horrendous, but if I'm the Oilers, I'm kind of lucky that I'm here because I played Vancouver. They decided they were just not going to shoot the puck on a goalie. Stuart Skinner has his confidence in a toilet bowl, and Vancouver's just we're just not going to throw pucks at him. We're just not going to do any of that. We're just going to let him feel good. Going to let him skate around his blue paint, little twirl dirl here and there. It's unacceptable conduct from the Vancouver Canucks. But back to your question as to what the Edmonton Oilers need to do. A, like I said, goaltending. That'd be kind of a good idea here. B, the Edmonton Oilers need to get contributions from the rest of the lineup the same way they did in Game 7. The Cody Cece's of the world and stuff. You got to get contributions from others because here's what the Vancouver Canucks did correctly. They were able, on home ice at least, to limit McDavid and Draisaitl. They didn't take this series over. They didn't run around. I think they did one game where McDavid had like 5 assists, and that was it. He was at bay. He wasn't dominating, and the Oilers' power play was not doing whatever they wanted. This was a power play that was operating close to 50%. We didn't see that in this series. They tamed down a little bit. Still high, but again, they didn't beat you in the traditional way that we thought they would. There was a lot of that depth. And you're going to do the same thing against the Dallas Stars because Dallas is a good structural team. They have players who can slow down McDavid and Draisaitl or at least contain them and make sure they don't go off. So you need the contributions from the rest of those guys. You need, like, Evan Bouchard's been a big part of this success. He's got 20 points and he has earned a lot of them, but he takes some of that pressure off the big boys. You need guys like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. That bottom 6 has to find a way to be relevant. Defensively, they have to play well. Stuart Skinner's got to do his job because Stu's going to face a lot more shots now than he did in the last round. And he's got to be better than what he was. But I do think the Dallas Stars will take this series. I had them already going to the Stanley Cup Finals against Florida. We're just going to continue on that path. No reason to change because Dallas to me is just a better, more complete hockey team. They have a better goaltender. Their defense is better. Their offense is not McDavid and Draisaitl, but they have players who can contribute. Dallas has that deep lineup where the matchup maybe isn't as important, but you can get favorable matchups at times when you're looking for it. And if Edmonton decides to separate their 2 horses because they're trying to spread out some of that skill and that offense, it probably works a little bit to Dallas's favor. Because I don't want McDavid and Draisaitl to play together because they're just so good. You can't stop them. You're just hoping they don't score every time they're on the edge.
Yeah, to your point about matching up with them, Dallas really has 2 lines that they could match. If you want to go top heavy there, the fourth line with Steele, Fox, and Craig Smith, but even Sagan, Ben, and Dadonov. Wow, right now. I mean, either of those lines you could put out there, and they're going to give a tough time. Like you said, it's tough to shut down when they're together, but you can at least make life a tiny bit rough on them. In every way, Dallas is a way better opponent than anything Edmonton has seen in the playoffs this year, whether, Vancouver because of injuries or, Los Angeles, just we knew in the first round, Los Angeles is a playoff participant. They're a playoff appetizer, and that's all they are. Where Dallas, okay, first round, they get the adversity right out of the gate. They lose to Vegas, and then they rally, and they end up taking the series. Second round, Colorado, same thing. Early in the series, it looked like no lead was safe against the Avalanche, and then the better team took over. And then, of course, the Chushkin thing kind of derailed Colorado, any chance Colorado had. But Dallas is they are a top-notch team with a strong blue line. They roll 4 lines. They have the goaltending. It's not to say that this series is going to be a blowout. I still think we're going 6 here. But, I mean, there's really no reason for me to not, take Dallas here. And, again, you see the odds going across the bottom of the screen there. I got Dallas in 6, which you can get at plus 500 right now. So not too shabby.
I thought we were going to get a lot more from Edmonton coming into the playoffs, considering how well they played in that stretch where they were pretty much untouchable. To me, they are the 4th best team out of this group of the Final 4. And I don't know about you guys, but this to me, if there's ever a time for Connor McDavid to be the guy that is the face of the NHL, this might be the series that I'd like to see him actually take off and be the guy and will this Oilers team. Obviously they have Draisaitl and Bouchard, but the NHL is Connor McDavid, and I want to see that from him in this series. I don't know if we are because Dallas is so good, but I think that this is the perfect time for the whole world to know why Connor McDavid, even the not regular fans, the just who watch for the playoffs. I think it's time for them all to know who the real Connor McDavid is.
I just don't know Just don't know if the Oilers have the depth to get there. Dallas has gone through some adversity here to get here. Like you said, they had to go up against Vegas with $100 million payroll. Then they had to go up against the Colorado Avalanche, who, I mean, they steamrolled the Winnipeg Jets. They made them look like they were no good hockey team. And oh, by the way, the Jets were one of the best defensive teams in the regular season. So cool. It just feels like Dallas has gone through a lot of hurdles to get here, and that does not guarantee that they will continue that success, but they know what it's like to shut down teams. Like, you had to shut down Vegas, who had, I would say, a more depth than the Avalanche did. The Avalanche just ran out of depth at one point. You knew exactly who they're going to roll out. Dallas gets to look at Edmonton, I think, the same way that they look at Colorado. It's very top heavy. You know who the best players are. You know they're going to play a lot. Contain them, keep them off the score sheet, or keep them to the outside. Let the rest of that team beat you. If you lose because, I don't know, Dylan Holloway scored 4 goals in the 6 games of the series, so be it. You know, like if Cody Ceci averages a point per game in this round, okay. Stuart Skinner stands on his head, fine. But don't let McDavid have 18 points in 5 games. You know what I mean? Like, don't let that be the reason you fall apart. Let somebody else beat you. If they do, credit to them. If not, then the series should be in the bag.
Yeah, you know, Dallas beating Vegas in those 7 games after going down 2-0, and then beating Colorado in Colorado, which we talked about all season long. They were the best home team in all of NHL. That's a feat in itself. And Dallas probably, you know, as much as it sucks to say, I would love to see the Oilers make it and stick with my pick, but man, this is a tough road. This is the biggest challenge for Edmonton if they could somehow pull this off. And then they have to face the winner of the Florida Rangers. It's a tough road for Edmonton here.
Edmonton's last conference finals appearance was 2 years ago when they ran into that Avalanche juggernaut team and got swept right out of the playoffs. So to your point,
that wouldn't shock me either.
To your point, here's a chance for McDavid to maybe put that signature stamp playoff performance to get them into the Stanley Cup Finals. But I will say, Dallas getting Chris Tanev at the trade deadline has been worth every bit of what they've paid. He has been great for them, and he is absolutely an X factor in the series. I won't say, you know, Dallas falls apart without Chris Tanev, but all of a sudden, if he somehow gets hurt in that series, they still have a very strong blue line. Obviously, Miro Heiskanen having a Conn Smythe potential playoff performance here. Tanev has brought a lot to that blue line, and they're going to need every bit of him as well. I've got Dallas in 6. Ant, what do you got?
I am going to say, Dallas in either 5 or 6.
Okay.
Dallas in 6.
All right. So we'll say Dallas in 6 all around. So Edmonton's going to win in 5. That's what's going to happen. Now, talking Conn Smythe odds for a second here. We got and there's all the odds going across the bottom of the screen. You got to pick one player from each team that is your Conn Smythe winner right now. Let's go with the Edmonton Oilers, since that we agree that's probably the weakest of the 4 teams left. Your Conn Smythe winner from Edmonton, I already said for me it would be Evan Bouchard, because he's on a torrid pace, a similar pace that got Brian Leetch a Conn Smythe trophy in 1994. I think it's Evan Bouchard for me if it's the Edmonton Oilers.
I think that's a bad pick. I think that trophy's been given out to defensemen, some really good ones over the last few years. I don't know if his defensive capabilities will hold up enough to get him that trophy. And I still think people may give it to somebody else like McDavid or Draisaitl. My money would be on McDavid. I mean, the Oilers go as far as he goes. So if he doesn't pull them there, I don't think anybody else will.
Matt?
I'm going Draisaitl on this one. He's got 24 points, 8 goals, has more goals than McDavid, way more. The assists are kind of close, and he's done it in less time. I would even put Bouchard over McDavid at this point in time, but I'm going to stick with Draisaitl here.
All right, so there we go. So that is our Oilers picks. Let's talk Dallas. couple, Miro Heiskanen, I'm not going to go defenseman 2 in a row, but he's certainly having a really strong playoff campaign. I mean, for me right now, it's Wyatt Johnston. That guy, no matter what, he shows up, he produces, he scores. He's centering Robertson and Stankoven right now. He's everything that Dallas, he's that punch that Dallas needs to put them over the top from being just a very good team to being one of the best. So he's showing up every night. That's my guy right there for Dallas.
Yeah, Wyatt Johnston's a pretty good pick. I feel like he can continue this pace that he's on. I also like Miro Heiskanen. He was the pick from last week for me as well with Johnston. Just Heiskanen does a lot of great things. We know how good he is defensively. The offense has been, not that he's not capable of doing it, but at certain times you kind of feel like maybe that's not his number one priority. Like, he's a good overall defenseman. He's I guess, a cheaper version of Cale Makar, right? Like, Cale Makar, you're going to get good defensively, but that offense is just, like, it's unbelievable once he touches the puck. But Heiskanen has been a factor offensively. Defensively, I'm not worried about him. He can play 28 minutes a night, and I'm not sweating one bit, because he is good in all situations. So for me, it's either going Wyatt Johnston one way, or it's going to go to Miro Heiskanen. But both of those picks, I would dabble in a little bit. I think what Heiskanen is now 10-1. Was he not 12-1 last week? I think maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Maybe people are listening to us. Maybe people are still. Maybe next week Miro Heiskanen gets to like 8-1. Then we start knowing that people know.
I'm gonna go Jake Ottinger. He's got 918 save percentage, 2.09 goals against. I know he's got 5 losses, but he's played very well. I think he's the second best goalie right now that's left. If Swayman was still in here, I'd probably put him at third. But out of these guys, I think Ottinger's the one for me. Tough road for him.
One other thing we didn't mention, and this is just how deep Dallas is. Like, that Rupe Hintz is day to day. Most teams, they don't have that top line center. You're like, oh, that's a factor. But Dallas is so deep. Not to say not having Hintz doesn't take away from them, but they're more than capable of covering that depth until he's ready to go, and they don't have to rush him back out there. All right, so we've got our Conn Smythe picks out in the West. Let's go to the East. Florida Panthers. Both of these guys got Florida winning. If I'm going to pick a Conn Smythe winner from the Florida Panthers right now, I got to go Barkov. I know Tkachuk is the bigger name, the flashier player. Is going to have more attention on him. The NHL loves to give an award to an American-born player if they see a real opportunity to do so. But I just think we all know how important Barkov is. He used to be a guy that kind of flew under the radar. But, I mean, he got the Selke this year. I think if they get there, I think he's going to be just the all-around player that makes the big plays. And, yeah, I think he would get it if Florida goes all the way.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I'm not going to go the other way there. And Alexander Barkov, now also a 2-time Selke winner. Added another Selke trophy to his case. He's probably going to add a Conn Smythe. If all goes to plan, he's going to win a Stanley Cup. He is, like, we knew how good he was. Now he's just cementing it for everybody. Like, I don't think I think Barkov doesn't get the love that he deserves offensively just because of how good defensively he is. But he is a complete player. He is complete in every sense. Nothing to take away anything from Matthew Tkachuk. He is a great player. He is a different type of player. He's an agitator. He's going to get under your skin. He's going to chew that mouth guard until it literally disintegrates in his mouth. But to me, like, if I need one guy to go out there and shut down the opponent's best players, Alexander Barkov's my guy. I'm trying to get him out there as often as possible because he can do that and then still provide you with the offense. He is a high offense player. I guess he gets lost because Tkachuk is on that team and Sam Reinhart scored like 1 million goals. He just gets lost. Nobody really considers him to be elite because of everything that happens around him. But if you're building a team and you need to win, you build them with guys like Barkov.
I am going to go the other way and say Matthew Tkachuk is going to win it. I know he leads the team in points, but I really feel like he hasn't taken off yet. And I think that could possibly happen in this series. I know, Adam, you talked about him being the guy that the Rangers and the fans are going to hate at the Garden. And I think he's going to feed off of that. I really do. kind of Reggie Miller type style. I hate to bring up basketball again, but there are some players that come into the Garden and feed off of that villain role. I think Matthew Tkachuk could be that guy. And like I said, I don't think we've seen the best of him like we did in the last year's playoffs. And he was pretty broken by the time that all ended. So he's fully healthy now. And he's my choice for Conn Smythe from the Panthers.
All right, one team to go here, the New York Rangers. A lot of different directions you could go. I know Chris Kreider is the easy answer right now off of his Game 6 heroics down in Raleigh, North Carolina. But I think there's a lot of skaters you can make an argument for with the Rangers right now. You can make an argument for Mika. You can make an argument for Panarin. You can make an argument for, obviously, Kreider or Trocheck for that matter. Yeah. I'm going to, because there's a lot of ways that would split the vote for a skater, I'm going to just take Shesterkin as my Conn Smythe pick. If the Rangers get all the way, he's clearly going to have to make a difference. He's going to have to steal a couple of games from Florida. He's going to have to steal a game from Dallas. So to me, it's Shesty.
10 years ago, Chris Kreider did the most heartbreaking thing he could do to a Montreal Canadiens fan. He is forever hated. I hate watching him. I hate when he does well. He is a good player, but I hate him. And I don't want him to win the Stanley Cup ever. He can be as talented as he wants. I just wish he never wins a Stanley Cup. I will say this, though. If he does, unfortunately, do so, he will probably pick up a Conn Smythe. He has 7 goals in the 10 games. You're not looking for like a massive amount of points with Kreider, but you know exactly what you're going to get from him. Like when the team needs somebody, you know Chris Kreider is coming to the rescue. And I hate it. It's unfortunate because every team needs a Chris Kreider. And I wish it was like not Chris Kreider, like it was somebody else, but he helps the New York Rangers in a way that I don't know any other player can. Like, yes, Mika Zibanejad is good. Yes, Artemi Panarin is good, but I feel like when you need something to happen, especially on the power play, he can tip it, he can shoot it. It's nothing fancy with Kreider, but it gets the job done. And there's no question that he, to me at least, is a major reason why his team is here. He is consistent. He's 60-1. Like, unless one of those other players ahead of him, the same thing. I don't know if Vinny Trocheck can get it just because like I feel like he's going to get lost here behind the Panarins and the Zibanejads and the Shesterkins of the world. But to me, it's Chris Kreider as much as I hate him and wish he does not put his name on the board.
If you need to like go throw up or for a minute, that's fine. Anthony and I could carry it for a couple of minutes.
I don't like him. I don't like him. I don't like what he did. And he's going to say that he fell. I know he doesn't.
We're not getting into that right now. But
it was paid. Somebody brought it up. They're like, hey, it's been 10 years. I was like, wow, I can't believe I've aged that much. And I still remember like it was yesterday, and I still hate Chris Kreider.
And you reposted the clip of it happening, too. I
did. Because I was trying to figure out what goaltender interference was, because I don't think there was goalie interference on that. So I was still trying to figure out if the NHL has learned anything. I believe they have not.
I'll say this about Kreider, second most clutch player in franchise history, behind, of course, Messier. But the guy, I was watching like old Ranger like playoff moments, and it's like, oh, late in the third period, they needed a goal to tie it or win it. Kreider pops up like you forget just like those early round series, like the clutch goals he had there over the years. He just, when they need a guy to show up late, he's there. You know, he's Domino's Pizza. He delivers late. You know.
I wish
Adam, I'm gonna go with you and say Igor Shesterkin. 923 save percentage, best right now in the best in the playoffs right now. He's 8-2. Here's my only concern: are the voters going to weigh the fact that they played Washington in the first round? Like, does that become a factor because Washington was so terrible? They got swept. I mean, they really didn't put up an effort. Like, does that factor in to this whole situation? Because then that kind of changes my thought process a little bit.
I mean, the Conn Smythe goes to the best player for the playoff performance. So the whole catalog, everything all together. But I mean, being realistic, it's usually the last 2 rounds of Stanley Cup in the conference finals where it's really evaluated. The fact that Kreider had the hat trick that got him to the second round to there, that'll also, obviously weigh heavily in the voters' minds. But I don't think, it's a situation where like they're going to give it to the losing team because the Rangers first round opponent was so damn easy. Like you can't count anything from that series. No, I don't think that would factor in. But yeah, it's right now. There's a few different directions you could go with all these teams, but I think with the Rangers, you have a bunch.
Well, if I had to rank them, I would go Shesterkin, Kreider, Trocheck, in that order.
It's also not Igor's fault that he had to play the Capitals in the first round.
Yeah.
Understand, but like
the Washington Capitals, they reap the reward of being the better team in their division, and then having to stumble upon the dreaded. Like we all knew the Caps were frauds, and that they didn't let any of us down. They, like Adam said, they delivered. They delivered on their ability to not be good.
Well, has there been a time where a team that lost, a player has won the Conn Smythe from?
John Sebastian Giguère in 2003, and then there was somebody else before that I know of too. I can't think off the top of my head.
Doesn't happen very often. Doesn't happen. Not in Gary's NHL. That doesn't happen very often.
And there were a lot of Devil fans that were like, "How does Marty Brodeur not get it?" Blah blah blah. But I mean, Giguère really was unbelievable that year. He really was. So I don't think this is a year where the losing team would necessarily get it unless that's a situation where if it presents itself, it kind of thing, or the possibility of it. And I think it's too early to tell at this point if there's a guy that like, even if they lose, if it goes long, he could still steal it. So we'll see. There's your Conn Smythe odds there. They've been scrolling across in our picks. We are going to do a little bracket review before we move on to talk some Mitch Marner landing spots, just so you could see where we all stand. Let's start with Chris's bracket. He's got a Panthers Stars matchup there, so that's still very much intact. His sheet would have been pretty much perfect, like he had said before. It wasn't for the Canucks failing to show up, and also obviously the Avalanche, Winnipeg in the first round. Otherwise, Chris's bracket looking pretty good there. Let's take a look at Anthony's. Let's see here. So the West, he's still got Edmonton alive. He's still got Florida there, but kind of got killed a little bit in that other Western bracket there up top. In the East, nailed it all the way through. And then we'll bring mine up, which I don't like to bring up, but here we go. So I had a Carolina Edmonton. Obviously, my East is shot, but I still have. I got the Western Conference Finals right. I have picked the entire West perfectly so far. So even though I'm picking Dallas in 6, maybe my original prediction comes true and Edmonton comes out. I just don't see it right now with the way Dallas is playing and with how Edmonton has played against the quality of opponents that they have seen thus far. So there you go. Looks like Ant or Chris will be right. Not so much.
Yeah, that's a tough bracket for you, Adam.
You know what? Yeah, if I take the Rangers over the Hurricanes, and then all of a sudden it looks okay, but that was a killer. That's what I get for picking against my own team. I really thought Carolina.
Like you did this to yourself.
I did.
I don't feel sorry for you.
No, don't. I'm the one that stepped in the poop. I'm the one that has to go clean up the shoe now. I get it.
You did, but then you kept walking with it. Now it's all over the house.
I'm going to say I think that this was semi-planned from Adam. If he went against the Rangers and they kept winning, it would have felt a little bit different for him. Like, oh, you know what? Let me just keep going and they'll keep winning these series. If I pick the Rangers, then they'll lose the series. Like, was there some of that thought process going to picking through the bracket?
No, because I really thought Carolina was a bad matchup for them. I thought people were sleeping on Carolina a little bit, but yeah, the goaltending ended up being what did the Hurricanes in. And I mean, when their backs were to the wall, they showed up for a couple of games. I mean, let's be real. The Rangers didn't really play all that well in Game 5. But yeah, I mean, win some, lose some, and I lost some.
Like Chris said in that short that we have that you could catch on YouTube, the Rangers were playing not to lose. And when you play not to lose, you're going to lose some. And that's kind of how it planned out. But thankfully, they won the series, and here we are against Florida. You changed your mind.
Thanks, Ryder.
Thanks, Chris. Let's see here. So now, before we debut a new segment that's Rangers-Panthers related, Mitch Marner's name obviously being bandied about here as his days in Toronto are probably numbered at this point. can't imagine Craig Berube would and him would be a good match. And they need to do something to shake up that lineup anyway. Tavares has said he'd like to finish his contract out with Toronto, so he's not going anywhere. So Marner's going to be the guy. Now, there's a lot of different places he could go. He's got to be okay with it. But Anaheim, San Jose, Nashville, Vegas, Utah, and those are some of the names that have been teams that have been thrown around. Understanding that a big piece is going to have to go back to Toronto in any trade to kind of make things out. Where do you see Marner? What would be your ideal landing spot for Mitch Marner?
Norfolk.
He's not going to the ECHL.
I guess if we have to pick an NHL city for him, first of all, I don't know why people think look, if you scroll Cap Friendly's like Armchair GM, the proposals there are just hours of content, man. If you are bored, may I suggest just reading through some of these trade proposals. They are nuts because some people out here are collecting, Mason McTavish, and they're collecting Owen Zellweger and a first and I'm like, homie, where? And oh, by the way, Toronto's retaining no money. I'm like, who is doing this? Nobody is doing this. I think he ends up somewhere. I don't know where yet. I don't know. For me, I don't know why I would want a player like Mitch Marner when I know what I can get in the regular season, but I also know what I'm getting in the playoffs. Right? Like he's not. Some players just don't perform when they get to April. They don't do a very good job, and Mitch Marner is not. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. So I don't know why I'm hauling out all these players for Mitch Marner so I can overpay him too, because he's going to need money. So I'm going to have to give him a large amount of money so I can not win with him. The GM that takes him is going to make a terrible choice. So I just assume he's going to Utah or to Nashville. Those seem like two teams that would make poor choices.
That's where I thought he was going to go. Because if you have Stamkos going to, Montreal, Nashville still needs some scoring, and Utah just needs to make a move to have a name on the team. So it would behoove them to try to make a deal like this. I don't see him going to San Jose. I still think, we talked about last week. You talked about Bruce Boudreau being the coach for San Jose, right? I think that we need to know who's coaching San Jose before a big type move like this happens for them. Anaheim, I don't see it happening. So which is going to happen is Mark Stone is going to go on the IL forever until the playoffs, and Vegas is going to get him. Somehow, some way. Vegas is going to make that move.
Seems plausible.
I know Anaheim's got the pieces, but if I'm Anaheim, I don't know if I'm making that move. I'd rather keep what I have and see what that does versus make that move from Marner. Nashville makes sense if they don't get Stamkos somehow. Vegas, they've been throwing one of the big defensemen in there as part of the deal. I think Utah probably makes the most sense because it's a NHL recognizable name, low expectations. At least for the first year or two, nobody's going to expect Mitch Marner to do anything for Utah. So I think that's a soft landing spot. And they, like you said, they got to put some, besides whoever's left from the Coyotes, they need a bigger name there to put some butts in the seats once that initial buzz of a new team wears off.
I just don't think everybody's lining up for Mitch Marner. You know what I mean? So why am I paying this crazy astronomical price? Like if it was Austin Matthews, I would line up. If it was Willie Nylander, I would line up. It's not for Mitch Marner. I'm not lining up for John Tavares either. This is your problem. You keep it. It's the same thing for Mitch Marner. I'm not lining up to trade every asset that I got for a guy who's just going to underperform. Why would I do that? Why would I line up for that? I understand that he is a very good player. He probably makes the rest of the players around him good. But he just doesn't seem to be winning. He's on a team that doesn't win, but I don't think adding him to your team makes you a winner. He doesn't look like the guy who's going to go out there and win. And this could be the same conversation a little bit for Elias Pettersson. He looked absolutely lost in that round against Edmonton. Lost. He looked absolutely lost. Great player. Guy who can play in the regular season. The skill is there. But as of right now, not a playoff guy. And if you're here, you need to win 16 games in the playoffs. I don't think there are teams that are lining up to unload young players and all these draft picks and pay him money so you can get eliminated in the playoffs where it counts.
I don't think they're lining up necessarily as much for Marner as they know they can get a good deal because they know Toronto has to do something. They know Toronto has to make, they got to make a move. So I think that's what it's more about is like, we can get a good deal here. Maybe we can get 80 cents on 85 cents on the dollar, or, you know, have Toronto take like 80 cents on the dollar or whatever, because Toronto has that pressure. So that's part of the reason why I think you'll see teams kicking the tires just to see, you know, Toronto will take the best of, I don't want to say the low ball offers, but yeah, the amount of that people are expecting in return from Marner. No, it's not going to happen. But yes, Toronto is going to get a big piece, whether that's a high prospect, a pick, an NHL ready guy right now, but they're not going to get they're not getting a ransom for him. It's just not happening.
What they're getting is the flexibility to spend Marner's money differently. That's
Correct.
What they're getting. The flexibility and having the cap space to go out and fill the rest of your roster. That's my, if I'm Brad Treliving, that's my number one priority. I'm moving Mitch Marner. Yes, I need to get something in return, but the number one thing I need is to make sure that I have the space on my roster so I can go out and not get, you know, 4th, 5th, 7th defensemen that I hear are just built for the playoffs, just built to win and then get bounced in this first round. You know, I don't know, maybe a goalie that would probably help.
That's definitely an area of concern for Toronto. Also, the blue line. So that's got it. To me, that's probably Toronto's only prerequisite at this point. Is it's got to include either a goalie that's ready to go or almost ready to go, or a defenseman that's ready to go. That's probably their only prereq. Now, we usually close each show with a segment we like to call Sweater Weather, where you get two jerseys and you get to pick which one you'd rather spend your money on. Chris has been banking his money. I don't know what he's going to go and buy, but he's got a thick wallet. He's got almost a Costanza wallet now. So what today we're going to do is something called Mask Off. We're basically same concept, but you're just going to pick between two goalie masks. And the Rangers and the Panthers meeting in the playoffs for the first time since 1997. John Van Beesbrook was a former Ranger goalie and a Panther goalie with a couple of iconic masks there. Of course, on the right, the Florida Panther mask that we all know and love with that beautiful gold shine and the Panthers logo there. I mean, just really top-notch design. But I think his New York Rangers mask was also very underrated there, as you could see on both sides. His nickname, you know, the Beezer. So you got the bees flying in the New York City skyline. You got the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, the old Twin Towers. And it's for a late 80s, early 90s mask that's really ahead of its time. I love the concept. But yeah, it's time to pick. For me, as much as that Panthers mask is iconic, I just always have had a soft spot for that Beezer mask from the Rangers. So that's going to be my pick right there. What about you guys?
Yeah, I agree. It's the fact that he's got the bees on the mask, as well as that New York skyline. Yeah, the Twin Towers on there. That's the seller for me, man.
I'm sure we couldn't get the rights to Future's Mask Off song just because it probably cost too much and we get DMCA'd. But I hate the Rangers, but that mask is like, it's nice. It's really cool. It's creative. I like the creativity behind masks. You know what I mean? Like, yes. Express yourself creatively. Nothing wrong with the Panther one. I think it is good, but it does look like a 90s mask. You know what I mean? Like it looks like the traditional, it's painted all the saber-toothed tiger. It's nice. It's nice. But that one with the bees, like you said, the skyline, like there's an art to it. It looks wonderful. Just hate that it's got a Rangers logo right in the middle.
You really just don't like the Rangers, man. I mean, I know you don't like the Leafs and the Bruins, but I feel like the Rangers are like right there, like even like ahead of Ottawa.
Chris Kreider at his success. I didn't like it. I don't like watching Chris Kreider have success. Not after what he's done.
Yeah.
I think it would look
Chris
better.
Kreider's car broke down in Montreal. I'm not calling CAA for him. He probably wouldn't have to worry about that because somebody would like help him out here. I'm sure Alexis Lafreniere will be able to get him out of whatever pickle he's in, but Chris Kreider came up to me, like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, I would be nice to him because it's Chris Kreider, but I'd be like, "Man, like we both know. You know what you did. You know."
I think he knows to not go to Montreal except for, business trips. I think he knows to kind of avoid the city.
I wouldn't do anything mean to him. I would just let him know that we know what you did, and I have not forgiven you. So if you need directions, may I suggest you ask somebody else? But I'm not guiding him to the Bell Center. That's for sure.
All right, that's fine. I'll get him there. I'll come. I got my passport. I'll escort him there. I don't care.
Adam's going to escort him there with a bucket of wings just to dig a little deeper. He'll have a bucket of wings in his hand. They'll both be eating it in the car.
You'll scoop him up on St. Catherine. You go all the way down Delamonte. You say right here to Avenue des Canadiens. Walk right in through the side door, Mr. Kreider. The room is to the left.
We'll protect Chris. Don't worry. Man, what a playoffs. I could like wax poetic about him just to rub it in to make you feel bad, but I'm not going to do that right now.
Maybe he turns over the puck in game one. Just a brutal turnover, goes the other way, down 1-0 early. Just game ends 1-0. That's what I'm looking for.
And on that note, so there we go. We got 3 people taking the Beezer Ranger mask on the left, which I was surprised. I thought a lot of people would go. I thought there would be more love for the Panthers mask because that is like that was like, yeah, it's like a lot of the other 90s masks. Like Wade Flaherty had the Sharks mask with the shark mouth open, similar concept. And it does fit that mold. But I mean, I remember the first time he wore that. That was like, that was the buzz of the league for a little while.
Wasn't that the cover of one of the NHL games too?
NHL
like
97.
Yeah.
I had that game on PC and I can't tell you how many hours I played. I could still hear the intro theme in my head. I could still see
he was one of the first goalies, I think, on that series. And then afterwards I'm assuming there's been a goalie afterwards that's been on like EA's cover of their hockey game.
I'm sure of it. I mean, they've how many years they've been running the NHL game now? What?
Yeah. Brodeur was on for sure. I remember that one.
That's what I feel like. He's got to be there. I know my first game was NHL 99 on the old N64 with Eric Lindros on it. It was easy because you could make any trade you wanted to. It's not like today where the computer will refuse it. So you could stack a team. And it was so well designed that sometimes if you just shot the puck towards the goalie slow enough, he was bad enough that it would still go in.
I gotta say, the NHL games, no matter who had made them, they're all pretty solid games. I even loved they came out with the hockey game for the Nagano Olympics in '98 for like N64. It was like based off of the Gretzky game. I think I shared that with you when we started this, and it was kind of like Midway was making it or something, kind of like NFL Blitz where you could just throw them into the wall, like all that stuff. Man, a lot of hockey games are just fun to play.
It'd be nice if they came back to PC. If EA is watching, just fun fact.
Probably not. I feel like a lot of places have gotten out of that, but I don't know how the exclusivities and all that stuff work. But nonetheless, another episode of Total Hockey Now in the books. We've previewed both conference finals today. Thank you for all those who have watched. It looks like we got about 26 of you there. Don't forget the Slapshot podcast with Christopher Murray. That's always coming out for you. And we got Subway to Shea with Anthony's Mets work. I mean, he probably doesn't want to talk about it much right now. But nonetheless, they got a series coming up with the Cleveland Guardians. I know that preview is up there. And of course, tomorrow, Rip and Riff, a little bit later in the day because the bill paying has to come first. So we'll be on live at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. We've got hockey, we've got basketball and baseball cards tomorrow. So a nice little lineup there. But I think that does it for this edition here. Well, next time we're back, we'll be in the middle of these series, probably after game 3 of each series. We'll be back on next Tuesday, game 4. So we'll have a nice pulse of each series and we'll see how things are going and update you from there. But for at Ant Rivera 86 and for at Fuzzy Chris 91, I am at Pucking Thoughts. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Hit us up on Twitter. We'll be back with you next Tuesday with another episode of Total Hockey Now on the Total Hockey Now Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook network.